My name's Aiden. I'm 29, work in graphic design, live in a modest apartment downtown, and up until a few months ago, I would have told you I had a pretty decent relationship with my older brother. His name's Caleb, 32. Growing up, we were never the closest, not exactly rivalrous, but definitely different frequencies. He was the golden boy, the one who played varsity everything, got straight A's without trying, and managed to win our parents' never-fading approval with that effortless, I've got it together vibe. I was the younger, quieter sibling, the one who doodled through lectures, forgot due dates, and wore the label the creative one, like it was both a compliment and a consolation prize. We were never hostile, just orbiting different worlds. But there was a time, maybe a few years ago, when things started to thaw between us. Caleb had gone through a messy breakup with someone who drained him financially and emotionally. Around the same time, I was freelancing full-time and offered to design a logo for his real estate side hustle, for free. It was a small gesture, but something clicked after that. He'd invite me out for drinks more often, joke about us finally acting like brothers in our 30s. It was nice. Unexpected, even. I thought we were finally turning a corner. Then he met Emily. She was luminous. That's honestly the best word I can think of. The kind of person who walks into a room and lifts the energy just by existing. Funny, down to earth, smart as a whip, and had this warmth that made you feel like she saw right through your social awkwardness and liked you more because of it. She was the kind of person who remembered the smallest things you said, like how I preferred green tea over coffee or how I once mentioned wanting to learn piano, and would bring them up weeks later without missing a beat. I liked her instantly, not in a romantic way. Let me be clear about that. But in the way you meet someone and instantly know they're just good people. The kind of people you want in your corner. The first time we met was at a family dinner. Emily sat across from me, and we ended up talking about art and music for most of the night, while Caleb and my dad got into some deep dive about interest rates. She asked about my favorite graphic novel artists, told me about how she used to sketch in the margins of her notebooks in high school. It was the most effortless conversation I'd had in weeks. I remember leaving that dinner smiling, thinking how happy I was for Caleb. He'd found someone who made even me feel seen. But apparently, that's where the problem started. It was small at first. Little things. Comments Caleb would make, always masked in a half-joke. Didn't know I was bringing my girlfriend to a comic con. He'd say with a laugh after Emily and I chatted about some upcoming art exhibit. Or, you two talk like you've known each other for years, followed by a stiff chuckle and a glance I couldn't quite read. At the time, I brushed it off. Brothers tease, right? That's what we do. The first real hint of trouble came one evening when Caleb invited me over to their place for game night. Just the three of us. We ordered Thai food, played a few rounds of codenames, and somewhere between the second glass of wine and a particularly embarrassing round I lost, Emily burst out laughing and nudged me playfully with her elbow. It was harmless, a friendly gesture. But Caleb's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. He got quiet after that, excused himself to the kitchen, and stayed in there a little longer than necessary. Later that night, as I was putting on my shoes to leave, Caleb pulled me aside in the hallway. His voice was low, controlled. You know, you don't have to try so hard to be funny around her. I blinked, confused. What? He crossed his arms. Emily, it's not a competition. You don't have to entertain her every second. I remember laughing nervously, thinking it was some weird joke. I wasn't trying to. Caleb, we were just talking. His expression didn't change. Just saying, don't overstep. That was the first time I felt it, the shift. Like a fault line cracking just beneath the surface. It wasn't about board games or jokes. Something else was simmering under the surface, and for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. I tried to back off after that. Made excuses when they invited me out. Took longer to respond to group texts. When we did meet up, I kept my conversations with Emily brief and safe. No more deep dives into art or music. Just polite smiles and surface-level chat. But even that didn't help. Caleb still watched me with this quiet, simmering suspicion. Like every word I said was a calculated move in some game he thought we were playing. Then came the real gut punch, the wedding announcement. They were getting married in early May. A cozy garden ceremony, intimate guest list, close friends and family only. Emily sent out these gorgeous handmade invitations, wax seal and all, and I waited weeks for mine. It never came. I finally asked Caleb about it during a Sunday lunch at our parents' house. We were sitting at the table, just the two of us, when I brought it up as casually as I could. Hey, by the way, didn't get the wedding invite yet. Did it get lost in the mail? He didn't even look up from his phone. You're not invited. I laughed, assuming he was joking. What? You're not coming? He repeated flatly, finally meeting my eyes. I blinked. Why? Caleb, I'm your brother. He sighed like I was exhausting him. Look, I'm not doing this. Emily and I talked. It's better if you're not there. My mouth went dry. What are you talking about? He stood up, tossing his napkin onto the table. You think I haven't noticed the way you two act around each other? She lights up every time you're in the room. It's distracting. You make her laugh more than I ever have. I just stared at him. She's being nice, Caleb. That's what she does. She's friendly. She smiles too much when you're around. He snapped. And for a second, I thought I misheard him. I see it. Everyone sees it. You're not slick. So do us all a favor and stay away. Stop trying to steal her. I felt like someone had dropped a concrete block in my stomach. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. I just shook my head, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of our parents' house without saying goodbye. I didn't tell anyone about that conversation. Not my mom, not my dad, not even my best friend. I figured maybe it was just a heat of the moment thing. Maybe he'd cool off. Maybe Emily would ask why I wasn't there, and he'd realize how ridiculous he was being. But then the wedding came. Or rather, it didn't, at least not for me. I spent that Saturday afternoon in my apartment, ignoring social media, turning off notifications, trying not to picture everyone else in suits and dresses, smiling for pictures I'd never see. I didn't even know where the venue was. Then, exactly 1 week later, just as the sun was dipping behind the buildings and casting long shadows across my balcony, there was a knock at the door. I opened it, and there she was. Emily, in her wedding dress, mascara smudged, hair undone, holding her heels in one hand and a bouquet of crushed white roses in the other. Crying. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there, eyes wide, chest heaving like she'd run the whole way. And all I could do was stare, stunned. When I finally found my voice, all I said was, "Told you, your jealousy would ruin everything." And that's when the real story began. Emily was still standing in the doorway when the words left my mouth. Told you, your jealousy would ruin everything. I hadn't planned on saying that. I didn't even know I was going to speak until the words were already hanging in the air, raw and unfiltered. But there was something about the way she looked. Wedding dress torn slightly at the hem, flowers bent and forgotten in her hand, makeup streaked from tears she clearly hadn't wiped away. That just made it spill out of me. For a moment, neither of us moved. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy, loaded, like the world had cracked open at her feet, and she didn't know whether to step forward or collapse into it. Finally, she broke it. Can I come in? Her voice was small, scratchy. I stepped aside without a word, still trying to process the fact that she was here. That Caleb's fiancée, no, wife, technically, unless something had gone terribly wrong, had shown up at my door instead of going on her honeymoon. She walked in slowly, like every movement hurt. I noticed she was barefoot, her heels dangling from her fingers. She left tiny smudges of dirt with every step across my hardwood floor. I didn't care. I closed the door behind her gently, like slamming it would somehow make all this more real. She stood in the middle of the living room, looking wildly out of place in white lace and pearl buttons surrounded by my IKEA furniture and art posters taped to the walls. I don't know where else to go, she whispered. It took me a second to find my voice. What happened? She turned slowly, and when our eyes met, hers filled again with fresh tears. He lost it. Right after the ceremony. Wait, so it happened? You got married. She nodded slowly. Barely. Emily sat down on the edge of my couch, like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. I sat across from her on the ottoman, elbows on my knees, trying to make sense of it. He wouldn't stop bringing you up, she said, staring at the floor. At first I thought it was just nerves. You know how some people get weird before big events? But Caleb, he was obsessed. She went quiet for a second, collecting herself. He made me block you 2 days before the wedding. Told me if I didn't. I clearly didn't respect our relationship. Said he saw the way I smiled around you. Accused me of thinking about you during dinner. During arguments. She cut herself off, cheeks coloring with something between shame and disbelief. He said the only reason I ever looked happy was because of you. I rubbed my hands over my face, trying to stay calm. Emily, I swear I never. I know, she said quickly, cutting me off. Aiden, I know. You were never inappropriate. You were kind. You listened. That's it. And that's what made him spiral. I didn't know what to say to that. A part of me wanted to march over to wherever Caleb was and shake him. Another part of me just wanted to know how things had gotten this bad. Emily pulled her knees up to her chest, white dress bunching awkwardly. Right before the ceremony, I found him alone in one of the dressing rooms. He was pacing, muttering to himself. When I asked what was wrong, he snapped. He said, I saw the way you looked at him when he dropped off that stupid engagement gift. You smiled like he hung the moon. I blinked. What engagement gift? The sketch, she said, glancing up. The one you framed. Of us. At the art museum. Oh, right. That. I'd drawn it from a photo I took the first day we all hung out together. Caleb had his arm around her, and she was mid-laugh, hand on his chest. I thought it was a sweet moment. I'd spent 2 nights working on it, printed it on quality linen stock, framed it in a thin matte black frame, and left it with their doorman. Caleb never acknowledged it. Emily took a shaky breath. I tried to calm him down. Said we could talk after the wedding, just focus on the day. But the second the ceremony ended and we were alone for our first dance, he said, this is all fake. I see the way you still think about him. I felt my throat tighten. Emily, I'm sorry. I never meant. You didn't do anything wrong, she said, her voice firmer this time. This is him. This is what he's always done. It just took me until today to see it. We sat in silence after that. I didn't press her. She didn't offer more. Eventually, I got her a blanket and some water. She fell asleep on my couch, curled into herself like a kid hiding from a thunderstorm. I sat up all night in the armchair across from her, eyes darting between her and my phone, half expecting Caleb to show up banging on the door. But he never did. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. The blanket folded neatly. The bouquet in my sink. No note. No text. Just the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air like a ghost of the night before. That should have been the end of it. But instead, it was the beginning of a slow, excruciating spiral I never saw coming. 3 days later, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was tight, clipped. What did you do to your brother? What? He's been calling me nonstop. Said you've been trying to sabotage his marriage. That Emily ran out on the wedding because of you. I felt the heat rush to my face. He's the one who banned me from the wedding, Mom. I didn't even go. He said you've been manipulating her. That you planted seeds. Turned her against him. I sat down at my kitchen counter, heart pounding. Mom, I haven't even seen them since he told me not to come. Emily showed up at my place uninvited. In her dress. Crying. There was a pause on the other end. So you admit she came to you. What was I supposed to do? Slam the door in her face. She didn't answer. Instead, she sighed in that way only mothers can. Disappointed. Tired. Aiden, I don't know what's going on between you two, but this isn't helping. There's nothing going on. I snapped louder than I meant to. He's paranoid. He's always been paranoid. Just because someone talks to me like I'm a human being doesn't mean they're in love with me. There was another pause. Then, softly, he says he wants to cut contact. And just like that, my stomach dropped. What? He said he's done. That if you can't respect boundaries, he doesn't want you in his life. Or his marriage. I laughed bitterly. Respect boundaries? He's the one who threw me out of his life before the wedding. Now he's mad because I answered the door when his wife ran away. I'm just telling you what he said, she replied wearily. And he asked me not to talk to you until you sort yourself out. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But instead, I just nodded even though she couldn't see me. Got it. I hung up. That was the moment it all really cracked. The spiral after that was fast. I lost not just Caleb, but the family dinners, the group chats, the hey, we're grabbing lunch after church, wanna come? Kind of invites. It was like I'd been quietly deleted. Not all at once. That would have been too obvious. No, this was slower. More insidious. Like I was fading from a photograph 1 pixel at a time. My dad didn't call anymore. My sister, who used to send me memes and stupid cat videos at midnight, stopped texting. Even my aunt, the one who always brought me Tupperware full of lasagna, stopped tagging me in Facebook posts. The worst part? No one asked for my side. No one cared about the sketch, or the conversation in the hallway, or how I sat alone in my apartment the night of the wedding, drinking lukewarm tea and wondering what the hell I did wrong. It was like Caleb had sent out a silent memo. Aiden's the problem. Trust me. Don't ask questions. And they all obeyed. But the true breaking point didn't come until 2 weeks later, when I saw the Instagram post. A photo of Caleb and Emily. Smiling. Backyard patio. String lights above them. Matching wine glasses in hand. The caption? Here's to cutting out toxic energy and choosing peace instead. The comments were even worse. My sister. So proud of you guys for standing your ground. My mom. Nothing but love for you too. Stronger than ever. Some random cousin. Glad you got away from the drama. Jealousy is ugly. And Emily liked every single one. That's when the floor truly gave out beneath me. Because it meant one of two things. Either Emily had completely changed her mind, or she was playing along to keep the peace, at my expense. Either way, I had no place left in their world. I stared at that photo for 10 minutes, my throat tight, heart pounding. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't confused. I was furious. Because for months I had tiptoed. I had pulled back. I had swallowed every unfair comment and every passive-aggressive jab and every weird possessive accusation, all to avoid rocking the boat. And in the end, they still threw me overboard. That was the moment I realized I'd been playing defense this whole time, and it had gotten me absolutely nowhere. And maybe it was time I played offense for once. The morning after I saw that Instagram post, I stayed in bed long after the sun poured through my blinds. Not out of laziness, but because I physically couldn't move. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling, letting everything swirl around in my head. The photo, the caption, the comments, and the silence that followed from every single person I once considered family. It wasn't even the betrayal that hit the hardest. It was the realization that I hadn't mattered enough for anyone to even ask. Not one person in my family reached out to say, "Hey, is this true?" Or, "Aiden, what's going on?" They just swallowed Caleb's version whole because it was easier than confronting the possibility that their golden child might be unraveling. And I was the convenient villain, the scapegoat. For the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to feel erased. Not loudly, not in some dramatic, door-slamming kind of way, just slowly brushed aside. Like a mistake they were all embarrassed to admit was family. I stopped replying to texts, not that I got many. I muted our family group chat. I stopped opening Instagram altogether. My apartment, usually messy with art supplies and half-finished sketches, became eerily clean because cleaning was the only thing that made me feel like I had control over something. I worked less, ate less, spoke less. Days started blending together. I began measuring time by the number of empty tea mugs collecting in my sink. A week after the photo, I got an email from Caleb. No greeting. No sign-off. Just, "Please don't contact Emily again. I mean it. She needs space. You've caused enough confusion." That was it. No context. No explanation. Just an order, a demand. As if I'd been some desperate homewrecker who couldn't take a hint. As if I were some parasite he needed to cut out. I didn't respond. I deleted the email and sat on the couch for a full hour, staring at the empty space where I used to hang the framed sketch I made of them. I'd taken it down 2 days earlier. I didn't break it or throw it away or anything dramatic like that. I just couldn't look at it anymore. That email was my rock bottom. Not because Caleb had said something cruel. I was used to that by now, but because of how numb I felt reading it. Like my nervous system had stopped trying to fight. Like I didn't even have the strength left to be angry. And that scared me. I don't know what made me do it, but later that night, I opened a new notebook and wrote one sentence at the top of the first page. This is not where it ends. It wasn't some magical turning point. It didn't pull me out of the pit immediately, but it was a spark, a promise, a whisper of defiance. I started small. I forced myself to shower at the same time every day. I stopped ordering takeout and began making basic meals again. I kept a to-do list on my fridge, simple things like clean the stovetop or buy more toothpaste, and gave myself permission to feel proud every time I crossed one off. And most importantly, I began to draw again. At first, it was aimless, abstract shapes, messy lines, grayscale smudges. But soon, faces started appearing in the chaos. Characters, emotions, raw, unfiltered expressions of grief and betrayal and quiet resilience. It wasn't pretty art, but it was honest. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was speaking again, even if no one else could hear me yet. One night, after a particularly long session, I scanned one of my sketches, a self-portrait done in jagged ink lines, half in shadow, and posted it anonymously to a digital art forum I joined years ago but never used. The comments trickled in slowly. Wow, this feels haunted. In the best way. This captures what depression looks like. I'd hang this in my living room just to remind myself I survived something. I sat at my desk, stunned. These were strangers. They didn't know me. They didn't know me kindness. But they got it. They saw something in what I made, not because of who I was related to, but because of what I created. That realization cracked something open. The next day, I uploaded 5 more pieces. Then 10. Then I started sharing some of my older work. I gave myself a fake name. No ties to my family. No connections to my real life. Just me and the art. And over time, people noticed. One of my pieces got reposted by a well-known mental health awareness account. Another got picked up for a small zine. A few people messaged me privately, asking if I sold prints. So I made a small online store. Nothing fancy, just a few posters and digital downloads. I didn't expect much. But in the first week, I made enough to cover groceries. In the second week, I made double that. By the end of the month, a boutique therapist's office from Portland reached out and commissioned a series of illustrations for their waiting room. They said my work gave people permission to feel complicated emotions without apology. I cried after reading that email. Not because of the money, although that helped, but because for the first time in what felt like forever, I was being seen again. Really seen. And not as Caleb's weird younger brother, or the guy who makes Emily laugh too much, but as an artist. A person. Someone with value outside the context of someone else's insecurity. And while all this was happening, I stayed quiet. I didn't reach out to Caleb. Didn't reply to Emily. I let the silence stretch. I let the distance grow. I stopped checking their socials. I didn't ask mutual friends how they were doing. For once, I stopped orbiting other people's emotions and started focusing on my own center. But I didn't forget, because even as I was rebuilding, I kept thinking about the truth that no one knew. That he had pushed me out, that he had lied, that I'd been labeled toxic when all I did was exist. And no matter how much success I found, a part of me still burned with the need for clarity. Not revenge. Not at first. Just truth. I wanted the record set straight. I wanted someone, anyone, to say, we were wrong about you. But that moment never came. Until, one rainy Thursday evening, it almost did. I was walking back from the corner store with a bag of groceries under one arm when I saw her, Emily, standing at the mouth of my building's alleyway, hood up, soaked to the bone. I froze. She looked up and saw me. Her eyes widened slightly, like she hadn't been sure I still lived there. She took a hesitant step forward. Aiden, she said softly. It was the first time I'd heard her say my name in weeks. My chest tightened. Emily, I replied, trying to keep my voice neutral. I didn't know if you'd be home. Why are you here? She hesitated. Can we talk? Please. I looked at the rain dripping from her sleeves, her mascara smudged just enough to suggest she hadn't come here lightly. Against my better judgment, I nodded. We went upstairs, sat at opposite ends of the couch. The silence between us was long and loaded. Finally, she said, I owe you an apology. I said nothing. I know how it looked. The photo, the caption, all of it. I still didn't speak. I didn't write that post, she continued. He did. Caleb. From my account. While I was asleep. I turned to her slowly. What? He said it would send a message. That if I wanted to prove I was loyal to him, I needed to make a statement. So he crafted the caption. Posted the photo. Even replied to the comments pretending to be me. I stared at her, stunned. And you let him? She flinched. I didn't know until the next morning. And by then, everything had already blown up. Everyone was praising us, supporting us, and I didn't know how to undo it without making things worse. So you stayed silent. She nodded, eyes glassy. I was scared, and I didn't know how to fix it without blowing everything up. I stood up, heart pounding. Emily, everything was already blown up. You just chose not to stand in the rubble with me. She stood too, voice trembling. I know, and I'm sorry. Truly, I don't think I ever understood how trapped I was until I saw what it looked like from the outside. I crossed my arms. And what do you see now? She swallowed. Someone who built something beautiful in spite of everything. Someone who's finally free. We stood there, staring at each other. She looked like she wanted to reach out. Maybe say more. But I wasn't ready to give her absolution. Not yet. I think you should go, I said quietly. She nodded slowly, lips pressed tight. I get it. She grabbed her coat. walked to the door, and just before stepping out, she turned back. But Aiden, you're right. His jealousy ruined everything. And I let it happen. But if you ever need someone to tell the truth, I will. Just say the word. And then she was gone. This time, I didn't stop her. But something had shifted. Because now I wasn't the only one who knew the truth. And truth, I'd come to learn, was a powerful thing. Especially when you've spent your whole life being silenced by someone else's version of the story. I wasn't ready to use it yet. But I would be. Soon. I didn't reach out to Emily after that night. I didn't need to. She'd said enough. More importantly, she'd confirmed what I already suspected, that the version of events Caleb had fed everyone was a carefully constructed lie. A curated narrative designed to protect his pride, even if it meant torching me in the process. But now I had leverage. Not in a blackmail kind of way, but in the truth has weight kind of way. And once it's spoken out loud, you can't just pretend it didn't happen. Still, I waited. Not because I was afraid, not anymore, but because revenge, when done right, doesn't come from anger. It comes from clarity. And for the first time in months, I had both. I started by digging through old emails and texts. Not to collect receipts, though I definitely saved a few, but to remind myself of the timeline. The shifts. The warnings I ignored. The moments I gaslit myself into thinking I was the problem. There were dozens. Like the time Caleb had joked about Emily smiling more at my jokes than his. Or when he stopped inviting me to game nights, claiming it was just couple time, but then I saw photos with half our extended family tagged. Or when I offered to help with the wedding website and he told me, I'd rather keep it professional. Back then, I'd brush them off. Now, I saw them for what they were. Attempts to push me further and further out so he could control the narrative before the wedding ever began. And I realized something else. Caleb had always hated not being the center of attention. Even as kids, he could never stand when someone else made our parents laugh. I remember being 6, telling a silly joke at the dinner table that had Mom snorting into her napkin, and Caleb kicked me under the table so hard I limped for 2 days. Back then, I thought he was just cranky. Now, I saw it for what it was. He needed to be the star, and anyone who pulled focus, even unintentionally, was a threat. So I knew exactly where to strike. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to rant on social media or show up at family gatherings demanding apologies. That's not how you deal with someone like Caleb. That would have only validated his version of me, the jealous brother, desperate for attention, lashing out. No, I was going to let him hand me the perfect opportunity. And that came sooner than I expected. 3 weeks after Emily's visit, I got a call from my cousin Jenna. We hadn't spoken in months, not since before the wedding drama, and I almost didn't pick up. But something told me to answer. Her voice was bright, a little too chipper. Aiden. Hey, stranger. Hey, I said slowly. It's been a while. She laughed. Tell me about it. So listen, I've got a favor to ask. You still do commission work? My shoulders tensed. Yeah, why? Well, I'm helping organize this charity gala next month. It's for the local arts program, the one that works with underfunded schools. Anyway, they're doing a silent auction and live exhibit. We're looking for a feature artist. I told them I might know someone whose work has been going viral anonymously, but who also happens to be my super talented cousin. I blinked. Wait, how do you know that's me? She laughed. Aiden, please. I saw the style. I know your line work. Plus, your anonymous handle is just your birthday in reverse. Okay, fair. So, they want me to contribute. They want you to headline. A full set. A mini pop-up. Your name on the program. That gave me pause. As in my real name? Yeah. And I already told them you'd consider it. I didn't answer right away. She must have sensed the hesitation. I know things have been weird with the family, but this is separate. No pressure. I just thought maybe you'd want a chance to show them you're not exactly the lost cause everyone whispered about over Thanksgiving. There it was. The opening. I kept my voice calm. Tell them I'll do it. She squealed. Seriously? Aiden, that's amazing. I'll send over the details. I hung up slowly and just sat there. It wasn't just about art. This gala was Caleb's territory. He and Emily had donated to that arts program last year. He bragged about it in the family group chat, how giving back through real estate success was part of their mission. His face had even been printed in the last fundraiser pamphlet. The same one Jenna mailed me out of habit before all of this blew up. If he saw me headlining that gala, being praised, celebrated, admired, it would chip away at the foundation he built his narrative on. that I was jealous, unstable, irrelevant. And all I had to do was show up. But I wasn't going to stop there. I started planning my set with precision. Every piece chosen for maximum impact. Some were new, raw, textured portraits of people staring down judgment, rejection, betrayal. Some were old favorites, bold and emotional, the kind of work that made people stop mid-step and just look. And one was personal. I titled it Smiles Too Much. It was a charcoal piece, entirely grayscale. A woman in a wedding dress, laughing, the joy captured mid-motion, eyes bright, smile wide. But behind her stood a shadowy figure, blurry and looming, trying to pull the edges of her veil over her face, as if hiding her light. It didn't look like Emily. Not exactly. But it was close enough for anyone who knew the story to feel the sting. That would be the centerpiece. No caption, no explanation, just raw truth, rendered in charcoal and pain. But I didn't stop there either. I contacted a few mutuals in the art scene, small gallery owners, art bloggers, even a couple of local journalists, and told them about the show. Not in a braggy way, just a soft nudge. I didn't have to sell it hard. The buzz was already growing around my work online. Once they heard I'd be revealing my real name for the first time, the invites practically sent themselves. A week before the gala, my inbox was full of RSVPs and quiet congratulations. And one unexpected email from Emily. No subject, just one line. I heard about the show. I'm glad you're stepping into the light. I'll be there. Not with him. I stared at it for a while before closing it. I wasn't doing this for her. I was doing this for me. But I won't lie, knowing she'd be there, knowing Caleb might find out, that lit a very specific fire. 3 days before the event, I bumped into Caleb. Total accident. I was walking back from a meeting with the event coordinator, portfolio in hand, when I saw him across the street outside a cafe. He was laughing with some guy in a blazer, but the second he saw me, his smile vanished. I paused. He walked over. "You look busy," he said flatly. "Yeah, I am," I replied. He glanced at the portfolio in my hand. "Still doodling?" I smiled. "More than doodling, actually." He gave a tight nod. "Emily said she saw something about you online." I didn't take the bait. He cleared his throat. "Look, Aiden, I know things got messy. Emotions ran high. Maybe we both said things we didn't mean." I raised an eyebrow. "I didn't say anything. You told Mom I was a threat to your marriage." He didn't respond, just shifted his weight. "And then you had the nerve to post that photo. From her account." His jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough." Silence. Then his voice dropped. "You think a few sketches make you special? You think you'll win them back with sad little drawings and a pity parade?" I stepped closer. "No," I said quietly. "I think I'll remind them of who I am, who I've always been, and what you did to keep me in the dark." He stared at me. A flicker of panic, just for a second, in his eyes. I didn't wait for a response. I walked past him, heart pounding. The weight of years of silence finally lifted from my shoulders. He couldn't stop what was coming. He couldn't spin it fast enough. And I was done staying quiet. The gala was in 48 hours. And the truth was about to hang on every wall. The night of the gala arrived quietly. No thunderclaps. No dramatic downpours. Just a gentle spring breeze and a soft sunset casting gold on the gallery's glass entrance. People began arriving in waves. Suited donors, art lovers in sleek dresses, local journalists with press passes clipped to their lapels. It was elegant but accessible, with champagne flutes circulating on silver trays and soft jazz echoing off exposed brick walls. I stood near the back at first, watching the crowd move from piece to piece, watching them react. They didn't know me, not really. At least, not yet. But my name was on the program. My real name. And they were connecting it now. Some with subtle nods. Some with wide eyes. Some even turned to each other and whispered, "Is that Aiden?" And in the center of it all, framed in matte black, spotlighted gently, hung my final piece. Smiles Too Much. The reactions were exactly what I'd hoped for. People stopped. They didn't breeze past it like they did with some of the others. No, this one demanded attention. I saw a woman tilt her head, then press her lips together and mutter, "That's haunting." A man in a navy suit whispered something to his partner, who just nodded solemnly. It wasn't loud, but it was loud enough. And then I saw them. Caleb walked in with his usual confidence. Expensive shoes, custom-tailored jacket, that permanent smirk like he owned every room. but there was something tight in his shoulders, a stiffness to his walk. Emily followed a step behind, in a simple black dress that somehow made her look 10 times more powerful than he did. She wasn't touching his arm. She didn't even look at him. They split directions immediately. He headed toward the front, pretending to greet people. She made her way through the crowd with the quiet grace of someone who knew exactly where she wanted to go. She stopped in front of Smiles Too Much and just stared. I couldn't see her face from where I stood, but I didn't need to. She knew what it was, what it meant, what it said, without saying anything at all. Eventually, she turned, met my eyes from across the room, and smiled. A real one. Then she walked away, not toward Caleb. Out the door. She didn't look back. Caleb, meanwhile, had finally reached the centerpiece. He stood before it with one of the curators, a young woman with thick-rimmed glasses and a notepad. She was explaining the piece to him, or trying to. I couldn't hear their conversation, but I could read his face clear as day. Confusion, recognition, rage. He looked around wildly until he spotted me. The second our eyes met, his jaw clenched. He stormed over. "You think this is funny?" he hissed, trying to keep his voice low enough not to draw attention, and failing. "Which part?" I asked deadpan. He gestured over his shoulder toward the painting. "That. The veil. The dress. The shadow. You made me into a villain." I tilted my head. "You made that pretty easy." He stepped closer. "You did this to humiliate me." "No," I said calmly. "I did it to tell the truth. You humiliated yourself when you weaponized your own insecurities, when you lied to our family, when you pushed me out of your wedding, then blamed me for it falling apart." People were beginning to notice. Heads turning. Phones discreetly raised. I kept my voice steady. "You needed me to be the villain. The creepy brother. The one stealing attention. And for a while, I let you tell that story. But not anymore." He scoffed. "You think anyone cares about your sad little art show?" "Apparently, they do," I said, gesturing around. "And for once, they're listening to my voice. Not yours." That landed. I could see it in his face. The way he blinked. The way his lip twitched. The curator from earlier approached cautiously. "Is everything all right here?" "Yes," I said smoothly. "Just catching up with my brother. He's one of the inspirations behind the exhibit." She looked between us, confused. "Oh, I didn't realize." I smiled. "Not many people do. He's used to staying behind the scenes." Caleb opened his mouth to fire back, but nothing came out. He just stood there, floundering, jaw twitching. For a man who thrived on control, on being the narrative's author, this moment was devastating. He walked out 10 minutes later. Alone. I didn't see him speak to anyone else. But the fallout started the next day. First came the messages, slow, tentative trickles into my inbox. Cousins, aunts, even my sister. Some apologized directly. Some tried to dance around it with vague phrases like, "I had no idea," or, "If I'd known things were that bad." One of them, my Aunt Lydia, wrote, "I'm so sorry we believed him. That we didn't ask you. That we let his version define you. Your work, it says everything we should have listened to months ago." I responded to every message. Kindly, but with honesty. I didn't let anyone off the hook. I didn't pretend like it hadn't hurt. But I didn't slam doors, either. Not because they deserved my grace, but because I did. As for Emily, she never reached out again. But 2 weeks later, I saw a post on her profile. A single photo of her holding a coffee cup on a new apartment balcony. Caption, "Peace, pretending." No tags. No explanations. Just quiet liberation. I heard from a mutual friend that she'd moved out the day after the gala. No argument. No drama. Just packed and gone. Like she'd been waiting for a sign. A reason. A reminder of who she used to be before Caleb clipped her wings. And Caleb? He tried to save face. Posted a long-winded essay on his business page about artistic integrity and narcissistic narratives. Claimed I'd exploited a private family misunderstanding for clout. It got 8 likes. One of them was his mother-in-law. He's quiet now. No more smug brunch photos. No more wedding hashtags. And word around the family is that his business lost 2 big clients shortly after the gala. Apparently, one of them was an investor who'd attended and saw the Smiles Too Much piece. Guess the truth leaves a mark. As for me, I kept making art. I did a podcast interview about healing through creativity. Got invited to another show, this time across the country. I moved to a slightly bigger apartment with better light for sketching. I wake up every morning and feel like I'm finally living my own life. not stuck in the shadow of someone else's story. And the family? They're cautious, polite, trying to tiptoe back into my life. Some I let in, some I don't. Because once you've been painted as the villain and survive it, you get to decide who deserves your light. I don't think Caleb will ever understand what he lost. Not just Emily, but the one person who spent most of his life rooting for him, even when he didn't deserve it. And now I root for myself. Because I'm not the brother who made her smile too much. I'm the one who gave her the strength to stop pretending. And that's more powerful than any apology he'll never say. Some people destroy themselves trying to be the only sun in the sky and forget the moon shines brightest when it's done orbiting someone else.